Let me ask about an alternative. I mean, we often talk about the indie web, the independent web, and one example of this is Mastodon. I mean, that's all federated, localized, very much a kind of social justice ethos. I mean, is that an alternative, or is that another platform that'll just get overrun by BS?
Um, Look, I think that it's doable. And I also think that another way to think about it is like the architecture of the internet itself, because whatever we make of the not fully decentralized nature of ICANN and IETF and these other kind of governing bodies, they're a pretty good attempt within the messy reality of multiple jurisdictions and interests to create something that is a multi-stakeholder governing system for the internet. Now, this is not to say obviously we've got something wrong because we're talking about everything that's wrong with it, but this is we're talking but at the protocol layer, at the sort of the management of TCP/IP and other key elements of the internet, then there is a system in place, and I think it requires governments to be the kind of trust anchors, or the jurisdictional anchors for how arbitration happens without any one particular government monopolizing it. And then on top of that, you can then build these systems of arrangement that allow for this. And so part of its protocols, obviously, you need systems like Bitcoin and blockchain that cannot be taken down. But it's naive to think that that environment survives and can't be intervened by government. I just wrote a piece today about KYC and its limitations on financial inclusion, and how cryptocurrencies can't escape this. They're going to get, know your customer rules and so forth. So essentially, I think there's a combination of regulation, the kinds of communities that you just referred to, these much more open, decentralized, collaborative communities, and protocols that allow them to do so, that underpin it in some way. So there's a way out. Wikipedia might be another way to think about this as well. It works for the most part, right? And the incentives people have to maintain it are largely, desire to do good. And there's lots of fascinating research about how people are inherently good. And so how do you build models and systems that reward folks for that? Not necessarily financially, so you can't game it, but somehow there's a motive thing. And I'm really interested in the ideas of citizen action and how we can build systems that reward human beings for contributing to data, not necessarily for protecting data, but the other extreme, which is say, what about if we all collect data and we see it as a scientific good, and we build systems that reward folks for actually positively engaging with data? So the classic example is Joey Ito, who is the director of the Media Lab. He helped found a company called Safecast that was created after the Fukushima disaster in Japan, when they realized that the Geiger counters that the telco company was putting around the place were not measuring the full array of radioactivity, because each one was equidistant, 1 kilometer apart. They did a full living map of where all the radioactivity was. And so they sold little devices to individuals, and heaps of them, loads of Japanese, just put them in their cars and drove around the place. And now if you go to Safecast, you see this, I think it's called safecast.org. You see a map of the entire world and where its most radioactive places are, because people are contributing to the collective citizen gathered data. So anything that can be modeled in some way that encourages collective collaborative behavior around information and around communities and societies and things like that, all of that makes me really optimistic. And I think that, to a roundabout way of looking at your question, Brian, there's a lot of different models out there that we could embrace to bring some sort of more positive, truth-focused collaborative activity into a system that's much more decentralized.